Anashira, shir, hallelujah. Try that. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Some of you are wondering, where am I on page 643? I'm at the bottom of the page. Okay, good. Then, so first part is, it's a 3-part. You just follow me. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. So you just fake it and find your spot. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Now, if Sherry were in the room, she would take one part, but she's not in the room yet, so let's try it one more time without her. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. Havanashira, shir, hallelujah. So I want to just give a word to plant a theme tonight. In this week's Torah portion, it's called Vayera. And Abraham is told of the imminent destruction of the cities called Sodom and Gomorrah. The cities and all who live there, with the exception of Abraham's neighbor Lot and his immediate family, are going to be destroyed for their crimes. And immediately, Abraham begins to argue with God. And you're probably familiar with that passage. He says, what if there's 50 righteous people in the city? Would you destroy a city with 50 righteous people? And then Abraham pleads more. How about if there's 45 decent people? What if there's 40 or 30 or 20? Maybe if there's just 10 righteous people, would you destroy a city that has 10 righteous people? And so here we have this example of Abraham, the first monotheist, servant of God, arguing, taking a stand, standing up to power. So when we talk about social justice, it can be like Abraham, willing to stand up to power, or Eleanor Roosevelt, who had been the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Commission, who said, nothing has ever been achieved by a person who says it can't be done. So what Abraham did of standing up and arguing with God, even though Sodom and Gomorrah were not such a challenging place, his commitment to standing up for his values is what we're going to hear throughout the service tonight. Our focus will be on individuals and the organization of Sacramento's chapter of the United Nations and what they're willing to do to stand up to power. So may this Shabbat be one where we hear, when what we hear gives us more confidence to speak up to power, to do good, and to take responsibility for the events in our life. I'd like you to turn now to page 645. This is on 645, the words Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor velo ata ben chorin lehivatel mimena from Pirkei Avot. It's really about that courage to do what needs to be done, that we don't have to accomplish it all, but neither are we free to walk away. So let's say those words together in the middle of page 645. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Velo ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena. Okay? Goes like this. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Your turn. Try that with me. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Part 2. Velo ata ben chorin lehibater mimena. Velo ata ben chorin. Velo ata ben chorin lehibater mimena. Velo ata ben chorin. Take it from the top. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Keep trying. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Velo. Velo ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena. Velo ata ben chorin. Velo ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena. Velo ata ben chorin. One more time. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. So it's not our duty to complete the work, but neither are we free to desist from it. I'd like to invite Terry Lutke to come forward and bring in the lights of Shabbat, page 120. Please stand in order, in honor of Shabbat and also in honor of Terry. Page 120. Oh, good. Okay, great. I just want you to know that their daughter, Lauren, got married. How long? 2 weeks. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks. It was extraordinary. It was lovely. They are the happiest, most in love couple, and the wedding was wonderful. So I'd like you to do, on the count of 3, say Mazel Tov to the mom and daddy. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. There you go. Ha Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Shabbat shalom. Please smile at everybody around if you're into handshakes or whatever. Hugs, whatever. Shabbat shalom. Please turn to page 652. Part of this theme of standing up for justice is that we do it together. So on page 652, beautiful Israeli song, Aniva Atah. Let's look at the words together. I'll do it slow, but you read with me, okay? Page 652. And Hebrew students, we'll look only at the Hebrew. Okay, go. Ani va'ata nishaneh et ha'olam. Ani va'ata az yavo kvar kulam. Amru et ze kodem lefanai ze lo mishaneh. Ani va'ata nishaneh et ha'olam. So if you capture some of those words, that's great. Let's look at the next verse. Ani va'ata nenaseh mechatchala. Yihye lanu ra ein davar ze lo nora. So ani is I, ata is you, nishane is change, et ha'olam, the world. Ani ve'ata nishane et ha'olam. Ani ve'ata az yavo kvar kulam. Amru et ze kodem lefanai ze lo mishane. Ani ve'ata nishane et ha'olam. Try that with me, okay? You can do it. Again from the top. Ani ve'ata nishane et ha'olam. Ani ve'ata az yavo kvar kulam. Amru et ze kodem lefanai ze lo mishane. Ani ve'ata nishane et ha'olam. We'll try the second verse. Ani ve'ata ננסה מההתחלה, יהיה לנו רע. יהיה לנו רע, אין דבר, זה לא נורא. אמרו איזה קודם, לפניי, זה לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. Let's read the words together in English. You and I will change the world, you and I. Then all will join us. Though it's been said before, it doesn't matter. You and I will change the world. You and I will start from the beginning. It may be difficult, but it doesn't matter. So we keep that in mind as we enter into this service. Let's turn to page 138. As we prepare to welcome the Sabbath bride. Coming in strong this evening. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמוע וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. So imagine the Sabbath bride coming into the room? So we stand. I want you to think of very strong, powerful Sabbath bride coming in tonight for our social justice Shabbat. Beth Shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha ub'tzohonai, tov emunei al sikuna, bo'i chala. Ve'ad lodi, ve'ad nishrat chala, ve'ei Shabbat nekadela, ve'ad nishrat chala, ve'ei Shabbat nekadela. Let's turn to page 144. We remain standing. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבם, בעמד יברחותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחייך בישראל. בגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו, יהי שמי רבא מבורך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשו, לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בימה, ויאמרו אמן. Page 146. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. So we turn to page 148, preparing for Mariv Aravim, that talks about the seasons changing and everything being in its proper place. And I'm thinking about what you're noticing with these seasons changing. What worries you about the changing of the seasons? What worries you? Flooding. What else worries you? Keeping the house warm. Yeah. What else? Right? We worry about the people that don't have houses. We just had an election. Choices were made. We pray for greater support for the folks that don't have houses. What makes us happy about this getting colder? It's refreshing. Yeah. What else? Yeah, the seasons change. The leaves are beautiful. Spiders? Really? Spiders. Is that what I heard you say? Joel, did you? Sweaters. When it got up here, it sounded like spiders. And I was thinking, what's with that? So we pay attention, right? The point of the conversation is that we're paying attention, that we're alive to the moments that we feel, that the weather changes and we feel it, and our concern for others is real. Let's join together on page 148 in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach sha'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umsader et hakochavim, v'mishmerotehem barakia kirtsono. Bore yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzebaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. We continue on page 150, thanking God for the gift of Torah, for our minds that work, for learning new things, for curiosity. That's the gift that we've been given. Page 150. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadita, al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbenu, uvkumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו, ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר, ממנו לעולמים. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Please stand for Shema, for the first line that we chant out loud. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. Let's chant together the commitment of loving God by teaching it, by living it, by speaking it. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם, ושבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's continue on page 157. Please join me in a world torn by violence and pain. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Page 158. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar v'kodesh, norati lot, osef elel. Malchutecha ra'u v'necha, bokayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Zaili, Anu ve'ameru. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar ki padanat Yaakov ugalo miad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Let's continue together on page 161. Together, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'akol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Amen. Let's turn to page 162. Both B'Shamru and Yismachu remind us of the gift and the joy of Shabbat. Yismachu b'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Aham mekadeshei, mekadeshei shavi Shabbat. Kulam yisveu, vayitanu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi'i ratzita bo v'kiddush Shabbat. Chemdat yamim, oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Zecher למעשה בראשית שבת, זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלאכותך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלאכותך, שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. So we enter tefillah together, chanting the first two prayers and then finding a word or a thought or a feeling in our souls and concentrating on that. But let's stand together, page 164. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 Adonai. La 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 Sfatai Tiftach. La 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 Ufi agi tahilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imachot U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'Neihem Leman Shemo B'Yavad Melech Chozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'elam Adonai Mechaye Metim Atah Rav Lo Shia Mashiv Haruach U'Morid Gashem Mechakel Chayim B'Chesed Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofech Olim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishanei Afar Michamocha Bal Givurot Umidom Melach Melech Memit Umachayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'emanat halachayot metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hametim Atah kadosh b'shimcha kadosh U'kdoshim b'chol yom yalucha selah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. On page 173. Disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from our complacency, make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical, spiritual, of humans together. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet, sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Together, Baruch Atah Adonai Mikadesh. Page 175. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu Ba'amecha Yisrael Utefilatam Bi'ahava Tikabel Utahil Ratzon Tamid Avodat Yisrael Yisrael Amecha Baruch atah Adonai she'odecha levadecha v'yira navod navod navod. Take a moment to breathe in gratitude. The moments of this week where there was sweetness and giving and sharing, where there was hope that you saw, where there was courage that you saw, where there was beauty that you saw. Try to summon those thoughts from this week. Page 177, God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha v'lecha na'eh lahodot. Please be seated. One 78. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עיר ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Please open your handout. So I'd like to just share with you these quotes. I had such a nice time looking up the United Nations Association of the United States of America and the Sacramento chapter this week, and then learning how Eleanor Roosevelt was responsible for the only woman, in fact, um, who wrote who was responsible for the writing of the Charter of Liberties, of human rights. So she says, you must do the thing you think you cannot do. Just sit with that for a moment. Do what you feel in your heart to be right, or you'll be criticized anyway. Nothing has ever been achieved by the person who says it can't be done. You have to accept whatever comes, and the only important thing is that you meet it with the best you have to give. The purpose of life is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experience. So I feel like we're getting a little infusion from Eleanor Roosevelt. And now I would like to invite Nick Alexander to introduce our speaker. Thank
Shabbat Shalom. Dr. Patricia Blaine has been president of the United Nations Association Sacramento chapter since November of the last year. Dr. Blaine has a PhD in history from Arizona State University. Her dissertation was on migrant deaths on the Mexico-US border between 1990 and 2005. She's currently doing research on Elizabeth Adams Rockwell, one of the first female legislators in Arizona. And I did a little reading about her online today. And I guess Sandra Day O'Connor was also in the came a little later and was in the legislature with her at the same time. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, very good. Dr. Blaine has taught at Sacramento State, Arizona State University, and South Texas College. She's currently teaches at the University of Oklahoma. She teaches U.S. history with a particular interest in women's history and Mexican American history. Prior to becoming an academic, Dr. Blaine spent 17 years in advertising and public relations. The last 5 years of Dr. Blaine's time in advertising and public relations were at the Baha'i International Community Office at the United Nations in New York City, where she was Director of Public Information. During her time in this position, Dr. Blaine was present at the Baha'i Universal House of Justice on Mount Carmel in Haifa, Israel, on several occasions. With her extensive experience with the UN and deep familiarity with international issues, we are fortunate to have Dr. Blaine as president of our UN Association Sacramento chapter. I should also mention, a few years ago, Sharon Alexander, my mother and Congregation Beth Shalom member, was president of the Sacramento chapter of the UN Association. And I myself have been on the chapter board for several years now. Dr. Blaine?
Well, good evening. Thank you all so much for having me. Nick Alexander, I'm sure you all know, is such a delight. And it's just such a joy for Nick to introduce me. I hope that I can do some things that will warrant his lovely, lovely introduction. The first thing I was going to do is introduce Sharon Alexander. She's not here, so please give her my regards and tell her that I tried to introduce her. Nick also has been a great force in the United Nations Association in Sacramento. I'm not sure literally how we would have gotten through the last year or so without him. I'm not a representative of the United Nations. I'm just going to talk about what I know, but I don't in any way represent the United Nations. I say I don't speak for the UN, but I can speak to the UN. Okay. So as Rabbi said, Mrs. Roosevelt was present and was deeply involved in the creation of the Declaration of Universal Rights, which is the foundational document for the United Nations, as I'm sure you know, in San Francisco, 1945. And of course, it is a post-World War II institution. So it is, I hope that I'm going to just give a really broad overview. I hope I'm not insulting your intelligence. Nick and I chatted a bit, and he said, well, you know, as time's gone on, you know, maybe the 1950s and 60s and maybe even 70s, people knew a lot about the United Nations, but you know, it's been a while now, so it may be that everybody's not really that familiar. I'm sure everybody has a basic familiarity with it, but I'm going to give you just a little more basic familiarity. So the United Nations is what we call a membership organization. Countries don't have to belong to it. There are currently 193 countries that do belong. So they have to apply and be accepted. But 193, I don't know how many countries are in the world, but that's the vast, vast majority of the countries that do all choose to belong to the United Nations, because of course, initially its purpose was to create and assure peace and harmony in the world. And that continues to be the bottom line and its primary purpose. So there are a number of main bodies, we say, of the United Nations. There's the General Assembly, which is made up of all of the member countries. The Security Council, which is the council that really has the power. It has 15 members. 5 are permanent members, they never change, and the other 10 rotate, I believe, on a 2-year basis. And of course, you might be able to guess who those 5 permanent members are. They are the victors of World War II. France, China, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Those never change, okay? The Security Council is another one. The Social and Economic Council, the Trustee Council, and the International Court of Justice, and of course the UN Secretariat, which carries out the work of the United Nations. And they were all established under the Charter in 1945. And y'all know what the blue hats are? Anybody know what the blue hats are? Nobody knows the blue hats? So sometime when I'm teaching, you know, I talked about the United Nations to my students, and they say, well, why can't they just go in there and stop that war? Or why can't they go in there and make that country do such and such? The United Nations has no authority. It has some power, but that power comes through persuasion and negotiation, but primarily through persuasion. Okay? So if indeed the United Nations is going to go into a conflict of some sort, they have to be invited in. They can't say, well, you know, we think we're going to come over there to country A, B, and C. They have to be invited in. But then United Nations doesn't maintain a military, so where do they get the blue hats? And they're called the blue hats because blue is the color of the United Nations and the color of their flag. So each of the member countries donates part of their military. So, you know, maybe there are people from Spain and Uruguay and United States and Germany, that they all donate some of their military members to make up the military force for the United Nations. Much of what I know, as Nick expressed, is from the years that I worked with the Baha'i International Community in New York at the United Nations. I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but I will tell you a little bit about it. We have offices in New York, Geneva, Addis Ababa, Brussels, and Jakarta. And of course, those offices of the Baha'i International Community represent the Baha'is worldwide. We have communities all over the entire world. Okay. We have the Baha'i international community has what's called consultative status, which means we have the right to give input to UNESCO. Okay, and I'll explain what UNESCO is. UNICEF, United Nations Environment Program, and the Department of Global Communications. And all that means is that when they're meeting, when they're negotiating, we have the right as an NGO, I'm sure you all know what an NGO is, a non-governmental organization, that we can sit in on those deliberations and have some sort of input. And of course, it takes certain application of that to be granted consultative status. But in our New York offices, when I was working there, we had an Office for the Advancement of Women, Office of Human Rights, an Office for the Environment and Development, and an Office for the Defense of the Baha'is in Iran. And if you know anything at all about the Baha'is or Iran, we know we've been persecuted in Iran from the very inception of the Baha'i faith. And we also had an Office of Public Information, and that was me. Okay. We had a World Congress at one point where we brought 30,000 people from all over the Baha'is from all over the world to New York City. That in and of itself was a bit of a task, but my task was to deal with the media through all that, internationally, but also nationally, and training the Baha'is on the ground to deal with their local and state and international media. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about the work of the United Nations. Are y'all familiar with UNICEF? Anybody? Okay, y'all. So UNICEF is the United Nations Fund for Children. And they do tremendous work all over the world, in over 190 countries and territories to protect the rights of every child. One of the things that always strikes me is that I could be wrong, but I believe the United Nations is responsible for more immunizations around the world than any other entity. So imagine all the children. I mean, I assume that most of us here had childhood diseases and we had all the little immunizations we were supposed to have, as did our children. But huge parts of the world don't have that. And so I know somewhere right now they're seeing outbreaks of cholera just from lack of clean water. I mean, it's something like 29 countries. I just heard that today. So that's UNICEF. And sometimes, I don't know if they still do it, frankly, or not, but they used to sell Christmas cards. Or maybe there were holiday greeting cards. I don't remember exactly. And this is one way they raised money. I see this lady over here knows what I'm talking about. She's shaking her head. Did you buy some UNICEF cards at one point in time? Yeah, I'm supposed to be. Do they still do that? You know? I don't either. Anybody know? Do they still? Oh, it's a trick or treat stuff now. Oh, all right. I'm sorry. Very good. All right, so buy them. And UNIFEM, you probably know UNIFEM is the United Nations Fund for Women. The United Nations is incredibly active all over the world. We say they offer financial and technical support to programs that are designed to encourage the advancement of and empowerment of women and gender equality. One of the programs that we did when I was at the Baha'i International Community in New York, our Office of Women, worked with communities in Africa. And I think, we've learned some time ago that, if we're an aid agency or whatever, we don't just go into a place and say, okay, now we're going to see that you get clean water. We're going to make sure you get this and that. We learned some time ago that the only way to affect change is to go into a community at the grassroots and say, what do you need? How can we help you? And this is one of the things we did with some some communities of women in terms of helping them raise their own crops, this kind of thing. So UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. It connects countries to knowledge, experience, and resources to help people build a better life. Now, doesn't that sound vague? We all like, the idea of a better life. All right. So we may come back to that in a bit. And then there's, of course, the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, which works again with countries to build their own solutions, okay, which is what to build their own solutions to global and national development challenges and achieve what are called the Millennial Development Goals. So again, this is coming in and saying, how can we help you? What kind of resources do you need, and how can we be of assistance? And then there's United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. Okay? It's the global authority for the environment, which programs focusing on climate, nature, pollution, sustainable development, and more along those lines. And then there is FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, and they're simply working to defeat hunger. Imagine that, okay? FAO's goal is to achieve food and security for all and make sure that people have regular access to high quality food and lead active, healthy lives. So a couple of weeks ago, it was United Nations Day, every year, October 24th. This year, we invited Dr. Amanda Crump from UC Davis to come and speak to us. Now, she has a PhD in plant science, and that's about all I can say. I can't even begin to pronounce the words of things that she does in the lines of science. But she has worked all over the world and has various teams working around the world to work on these things about, not just making sure people have enough food, but adequate food, and developing the kinds of scientific data that we need to be able to be more efficient as we develop our food. Now, this was on a Sunday afternoon, wasn't it? Was that Sunday afternoon, Nick? And the audience loved it. We couldn't hardly get them to stop because the Q&A went on and on and on because people were so terribly interested in this. So one of the other board members and I got together and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to continue this? So we decided on the spot, and then, of course, asked Dr. Crump. We decided to have dinner with Amanda. And so we're going to do that Saturday the 18th. I have a few invitations here, just called Dinner with Dr. Amanda Crump. She is Professor of International Agricultural Development at UC Davis. So if anyone is so inclined, very interested in that, come join us. We're going to be at Sellen's at 6 o'clock in the evening. We're going to try to be outside. I don't know how familiar you are with Sellen's, but they have a very, very nice enclosure. I mean, it's outside, but enclosure, because I'm still not ready to eat indoors at restaurants, and they even have heaters and that kind of thing. So if you're interested in that, so this was our connection to this Food and Agricultural Organization at the United Nations. So I don't want to make your eyes gloss over or glass over, whatever that is, or bore you to death. But one of the main things United Nations is focused on right now is called Sustainable Development Goals. We call them SDGs. Okay, there are 17 of them, and these encapsulate exactly what the United Nations is focusing on at this time. Now, I said I don't want your eyes to glaze over, but I am going to take just a second. I'm just going to mention them all. It won't take me a while, but I want you to get an idea of the scope of what the United Nations is trying to deal with at this point in time. So they are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships for these goals. So that's 17. So we look at the United Nations today, and I know there are people who say, oh, the UN, it's outlived, it's a this, So it's really important, I think, for us to understand the scope of the work done by the United Nations. They have solved many violent conflicts. They've prevented wars. They have saved millions of lives. Again, remember those children that have all been vaccinated, thanks to the UN. More than 560 multilateral treaties have been conducted and executed on human rights, refugees, disarmament, trade, oceans, outer space, etc. So the United Nations has been incredibly, incredibly successful. And I always say, people have all sorts of complaints or can contrive complaints about the United Nations, and that's fine. But I always say, it's the best thing we have. As a world, who else is going to bring us all together? And that's the United Nations. So, if there are some hiccups, some, bumps here and there, okay. But, overall, let's see what, the good that the United Nations does. And there is not another organization on the planet that does what the United Nations does. So one of the things they are focused on, I'm sure you've heard in the media the last few days, is COP27. So this is a conference, United Nations conference, where all of the member countries and all the NGOs, non-governmental organizations, will come together to create a resolution. And the United Nations does this fairly regularly on all sorts of issues, whether it's water, whether it's immigration. I know we went to one in Rio a few years ago, I can't remember what it was, and they do them on the environment and on women. But this resolution process goes on for a very long time. Now, I think they're meeting in Egypt from November 6th, I think it is, to 18th. They're not going to do all that work in those, 12 days. They've been working for months, maybe years before they've come to this, because these conferences are planned long in advance. And so each country and all of those NGOs, all those organizations that have consultative status, come to this conference and they all have something they want on the agenda, something that they want to go in that resolution. And so you can imagine most of that's worked out before they ever get there. But then those last days actually on site is when things will really happen. The result of this is you have a resolution, and once the parties, the countries have agreed to it, what that means is they agree that they will then, in their countries, live by this. So this is why it is so crucial and so important that these things happen, and then the countries agree to it, and they agree to be held accountable to it. Doesn't mean every country does everything they've ever been asked to, but in general, they can be held accountable, because they have signed on. And that's, the bottom line is signing on to the resolution. All right, so that's what's going on, COP27, which is all about the environment. Okay, so UNA Sacramento. So UNA, it's the United Nations Association, okay? So let me tell you, I thought, well, how can I explain UNA? I thought, I have these little cards right here. So maybe on the little card, that's not even the one I wanted. Well, anyway, the little card that I do have says United Nations Association is a movement of Americans committed to the ideals of global engagement. With more than 20,000 members and 200 chapters across the country, we're dedicated to educating, inspiring, and mobilizing Americans to support the principles and the vital work of the United Nations. It says around the world, the United Nations is acting to protect human rights and confront the planet's most complex challenges, but it can't do it alone. So we are not literally an arm of the United Nations. We are a movement of Americans committed to the ideals of the United Nations. Okay, and like I said, we have, I think, 200 chapters across the United States, which it says 20,000 members. What do? We do education, outreach, and advocacy. And I'll tell you about advocacy in a minute, in the greater Sacramento region. We have dinner forums. Like I say, one's coming up if you want to meet with or have dinner with Dr. Amanda Crump. There it is. We have dinner fora. Shouldn't that be a fora? Forums is not a real word, is it? I guess fora anyway. It's like a memoranda. There aren't memorandas. Anyway, it's a little thing I have about the form of the word. Anyway, panel discussions, informational events led by policy experts and practitioners, cultural celebrations in our community, advocacy work locally and nationally. And we have issue-based programs to address climate change, human rights, poverty, global health, sustainable development. We also have young professionals that work here now for UNA Sacramento. So Sacramento's history UNA goes back to 1955. Is that right, Nick? 1955. So we've been around a long time. I think United Nations was created in 1945. So UNA Sacramento was going to ride on the ball getting this created. Now, I imagine many organizations, we've kind of been up and down, and boy, COVID did a real number on us. I don't want to say, I want to say we went dark. We didn't get a whole lot done for a while. What we did little of was on Zoom. That COVID combined with our fabulous, fabulous president that we had, who had to step down for family reasons. And so that really injured UNA Sacramento. So we did some things together, pulled some things together. So here, one of the main things we do, we said, is education. So this is some of the recent programming that we have had in Sacramento. We have done programming on Palestinian issues. One of our former board members is Palestinian, and this is really her passion and her life's work. So we did a program on the Palestinian issues. We supported the International Peace Rose Garden programming. This was during pandemic. I think we did it all over Zoom. So in early 2021, we did this on Zoom, but we did a program on the disparity in healthcare for African American women in Sacramento. And that was early 2021. And in mid 2021, we did programming on women who are crossing the southern border. So in each of these, we bring in experts who can talk to us. So when we did the program on the disparity in healthcare for African American women in Sacramento, we had an African American doctor, psychologist, nurse, who could actually speak to the issues. And the program on women crossing the southern border, obviously this is an immigration issue. It's an issue very, very close to my heart. I don't know that you would have picked it up, but Nick did mention that my PhD dissertation is all about people coming across the US-Mexico border. So we found a couple of people who were really experts in this. There's a woman, Sister Norma, who has run Catholic Charities in McAllen, Texas on the US-Mexico border for many years. And when the migrants come across, they end up at Sister Norma's care. And they may have just, maybe they've just come from Guatemala, in this case, maybe they've just come from, say what? I just lost the other country that they're all coming from right now. But the point is, what her agency does is give them food, they can get a shower, they can get clothing, fresh clothing, backpacks full of snacks, because that's what they're going to need to get them to the next place they go around the country. And in those backpacks, we always stuff lots and lots of socks and underwear, because those are the most requested, the items that are most needed for people coming across the border. Some of those people have walked so long and so far that they have rubbed off the soles of their feet. They will never, ever recover from this. Anyway, so we had Sister Norma, another individual who works with those young people who come across the border who are unaccompanied. She works with them in terms of finding legal help for them. And we also had an immigration attorney from Sacramento who worked on that program. We did programming on Women's International Women's Day. In March, we had a speaker from Chico State who came down and spoke. We have, I said, programming observing United Nations Day. We did both in 2021 and now in 2022. We're having a strategic planning session next Saturday or Sunday, one of those two. Yeah, so kind of get where we're going to go for the next year and this kind of thing. We have, by the way, put together a really, really dynamic board. Like I said, we pretty much lost it all during pandemic. We put together a really dynamic board. Right now, we're just at about 7 people, but really dynamic and committed and talented individuals. So we'll always be looking to sort of expand that. I said I'd talk about advocacy. So one of the things that UNA does is work with elected representatives to try to get them to work on or pass legislation, whatever that will support the ideals and the work of the United Nations. So we've had some training, but we haven't really done anything now because we don't know who those elected representatives are going to be. Now we may very shortly, but that has to be in place before we can go and start knocking on doors and making phone calls and see if they will see us, if we can get in to see them. And what we'll have is a number of issues that we want to work on. like talking points, and we'll get, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes, they'll give us. We can sit with them and say, these are the things that are most pressing now, and we would really like for you to vote on or support us on this kind of thing. So we have somebody who did a lot of work at the East Bay UNA who's working with us, and she's done a lot of work with advocacy. So we're really thrilled to have her, and she's done some training. And now once we have our elected representatives in place, we'll go seek them out. So, and I forgot to say, we have a young professionals group. One of our board members, Dr. Kathleen Callahan, is a professor of political science at American River College. And she also runs Model UN. If you aren't familiar with it, is creating a Model United Nations among high school and college students. And she's done that for many years. And so lots of times when we have activities, her students all come because, of course, she encourages them. Some of these are incredibly sharp young people. So one of them put together a young professionals group, and they've already had activities, and it's just really flourishing. So, but that's thanks to the young people taking it on themselves. So we do have a young professionals group if anybody's interested in that. So how can you get involved? I guess it's like, which issues speak to you, and maybe there are some issues that we haven't talked about tonight that you would really, really like to do some work on. And we say, yes, of course, come and join us. We would love to have you. Like I say, you heard some of the issues that we work with. There are many, many more. We're going to talk about them in our strategic planning in a week or so. Let's see. Did I just say education and outreach in Sacramento? We have dinners. We have, the benefits of, I already told you the benefits of membership. You'll be joining a group of like-minded people who really, really want to move things forward in terms of supporting the United Nations. If you'd like, I can give you one of the invitations for the dinner with Amanda, Dr. Crump. And also just let us know. We are at unasacramento.org. We have a website, still needs a little work. From after a pandemic, we didn't get everything done, but it's there. And it will tell you a lot, about what we do, and you can contact us that way. So. We could. We haven't in the last year so that I've been there, but we certainly could. Oh.
All of the things that you mentioned are all wonderful things that the UN does. However, as a Jew, what I find is that the UN is really lopsided in their view of human rights violations across the world. And while they do investigate human rights violations in a number of different countries, it seems that Israel is singled out over and over again for alleged human rights violations. This makes it really difficult for me to want to support the UN. As a matter of fact, since 1968, 20 years after Israel became a state, there have been over 200 resolutions passed against Israel. I struggle with this. It makes it really difficult for me to want to support an organization that appears to be so incredibly lopsided in their view. Can you help me with this?
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I certainly couldn't disagree. But I don't know. I mean, certainly, maybe it's something that advocacy can work on. Somebody really wants to look at that issue, wants to get, some of our legislators involved to work on that. That would be what we could offer as UNA, would be to work with our legislators and say, hey, look, we'd like to see some progress.
Are you suggesting that our legislators have anything to do with the policy of the UN?
They can, because anything that we do as a government that affects the United Nations, gets involved with the United Nations, certainly much of that comes from our legislators. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to beat you over the head with the Baha'i thing, but you know, we have, like I say, we have had tremendous persecution in Iran since forever. And many, many times the legislators have offered bills, have created bills, and the United Nations has always accepted them, and then they're passed on to Iran. Now you may say, well, say they're still persecuting you. Yes, they are. But they used to think they could get away with it. But now the whole world knows what goes on with the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran. So yeah, it may not come today. And I'm talking off the top of my head. I don't know, you know, but I think certainly that would be one thing that you could do, would be to get involved in advocacy. I mean, if that's something that, you know, really speaks to you, there's no reason why. I don't know, Nick, is that something that, you know, if it speaks to you?
I want to thank you. I don't think any of us do very much at all about humanity, certainly not about effective justice. And you have put out a buffet
No.
of things that important work that you do. And I want to thank you very much for educating us about what you do. And please go ahead and go to the next video.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I'll leave a few of these, just tell us what we do. I'll leave it with you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you,
Susan.
for having me.
A gift from Susan and from our synagogue, and thanking you for speaking this evening. Thank you very much. Thank you. It takes a lot to keep doing social justice work. And every time we meet somebody who's got that commitment, we're inspired by that work. My friends, let's turn to page 371 as we send our love to anyone who's in need of healing and strength. I'm just going to ask you, who is right here in the room. My friends, let's join together. Page 371. Misha be'erach avotenu mekor habracha laimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha be'erach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Of our Of all of you who are here, was one of you prepared for Sherry? Thank you very much. You can kind of track what she's saying about announcements by looking at the back and see if what she says matches. And if not, yeah, there's a test.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Blaine. That was really interesting. Reminded me of the days with the little milk cartons that we carried around for UNICEF too. So thank you. And of course, thank you to Rabbi Nancy for leading tonight's service. And I want to also thank her personally. Some of you may not know, but Rabbi Nancy put in an appearance on our campus at Sac State on Thursday for the town hall and contributed in wonderful ways. So thank you. So tonight's Oneg is sponsored by Cindy and is it Giles? Atia, Barbara, Norman Black, Terry and Yoluki. So thank you. And myself and my husband David. And this is a long list of Onegs. And Sarah and Roy Schutznagel. So thank you all, and we'll look forward to enjoying that. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. we have Torah study, and it will be in person. And here at CBS. This Sunday, Neshama is in session beginning at 9 a.m. Also, this Sunday is the first of 3 CBS neighborhood concert series. It is at 4 p.m. Please join me. I know I'll be here. More information, including how to purchase tickets, can be found on the flyers in the foyer and on our website. And I think you can get them at the door as well. So show up and hear some beautiful music. Thursday, November 17th, Social Actions Monthly Meeting is 7 p.m. on Zoom. So if you're joining, please contact our administrator, Jenny Jeffrey, and she can send you the link. You can see the amazing work that they do. Friday, November 18th, Shabbat with a Beat, 7 p.m. in person and on Zoom. And I wanted to wish Shabbat Shalom to our Zoom attendees as well. Sunday, November 20th is Neshama is also in session. It will begin at 9 a.m. And then Sunday, November 20th is also the CBS annual turkey drive. So please participate in the CBS annual event. Head over to whichever store you like to frequent, pick up a bite, bring it here. It supports the Sierra Arden Neighborhood Food Closet. You may bring your items, and there are lists of things that they need in the foyer and on the website. To the scheduled drop-off on Sunday from 9 to 3 p.m. If you will be away, and David and I will be away, so this is what we're doing. If you'll be away on the 20th but would still like to donate the much-needed items, email Jenny Jeffrey, our temple administrator, and we'll schedule a time to meet and bring those items here. Really, no donation is too small. Think about what Thanksgiving was really about, what social justice is about, what giving food to those who do not have it is about. That's part of our value. There will not be Shabbat services on Friday, November 25th, but Yartzites and Kaddish will be read at Torah study at 9 a.m., and that one will be on Zoom. So the link will be available on our website. Now, you may have noticed our gift shop has new hours, opening 1 hour before Shabbat services and during Neshama on Sundays. So get a jump on all your Hanukkah needs as it is quickly approaching. Actually, when you said, does the weather remind me of anything? It's like things are moving along really quickly. So speaking of Hanukkah, please join us for our annual Hanukkah fundraiser. There is a lovely in-person dinner on December 23rd. I'm going to make a prediction that latkes probably will be present. And pre-orders can be picked up on Sunday, December 18th. So all that information is also on the website. If you would like to host an oneg or a special event for remembrance or a wedding or anything of that nature, just please let us know. We need volunteers to help with those onegs as well. If you want to get involved in any way, just reach out to Jenny Jeffrey and she'll pass your interests on. There is CBS's mask policy is that they are an option while indoors, but we do recommend that folks, particularly in high-risk groups, use the N95s, the KN95s, or other approved masks. If you don't have one, we will provide them. All who attend events at CBS must be fully vaccinated and with the booster. They qualify for as recommended by the state of California and the CDC at this time. So we appreciate you respecting that policy. If you grabbed a name badge, please remember to return it. If you don't have a name badge and would like one, please add your name to the list out front. So Shabbat Shalom. Hope it's a good week for all.
Thank you. Good job. You only missed one thing.
I know.
Okay. So on the 22nd at 7 p.m., there's an interfaith Thanksgiving gathering at St. Michael's. I will be there. Anybody who wants to come, love to have you. 7 o'clock. Okay, let's turn to page 586 for Aleinu, followed by our Kaddish prayer. Page 586. Please stand. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liyotzeh breshit, shelo asanu kiguye haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo samchokenu kahem, v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech mochei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, Shahu note shamayim v'yoser haaretz, u'moshev yikaro b'shamayim mima'al, u'shchinatu zo, v'gov hei meromim, hu Eloheinu einod, emet malkeinu efesulato, kakatu v'torato v'yadata hayom, v'hashevota, Elevavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mima'al ve'al haaretz mitachad einod v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu Yeh Adonai Echad, U'Shemo Echad. Please be seated. Dear friends, as we prepare for Kaddish, I want to acknowledge that today we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve our country. And we pray that by their example, we will strive to be the best country that we can possibly be. I want to share with you those who have passed within the 11 months: Elaine Kaplow, Carlos Garcia, Eric Friedman, Herschel Adler, Barbara Norman, Magali Grace Verano Apasoa, Murray Steingart, Gary John Newman, Ronald Claffer, Chris Bagoon, Cecile Ash, Chris Wynot, Ethan Nava, Bernard Elliott Ezralu, Judith Spivak, Bill McDonald, Alan Blickstein, Carol Trachtenberg, Danny Yashby, Jean Rubin, Sarah Lipson, Karina Blue, Robin Ash, Ricky Joe Miller, Victor Gabriel, Ida Brody, Jen Garcia, Mark Kane, Ami Lustig, Carl Saperstein. And we remember with much love Rose Bailey, Pearl Berman, Irving Mike Dickstein, Robert Duncan, Ruth Dushkin, Sophia Eisner, Jesse Fabish, Dorothy Hill, Robert Karsh, Connie Kessler, Milton Lewis, Sarah Lord, Harold Mandel, Mo Marcus, Robert Isaac Patent, Eugene Radding, Robert Safran, Gabriel Schutzingle, Jaime Siegel, Elizabeth Stern. Are there any other yard sites or recent deaths in our community? I'm sorry. We stand as one We remember our veterans who served our country, who gave their lives to protect us. Zichronam Livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. Page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'almei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'akol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'akol Yisrael v'imru amen. Amen. Please be seated. I want to acknowledge a couple of folks that we haven't seen in our sanctuary. First of all, Patricia, we haven't had you here before. We're happy that you're here. And Amanda, your beloved husband and your daughter, can you just introduce them again, please? Amanda is in the Introduction to Judaism class, along with Harmony. Can you share with us your name, your husband, and your daughters? Welcome. We're so happy that you're with us. Anyone else who's at? Yes. Susan, why don't you introduce our Sacramento ACT person? We are so happy to be able to be connected with ACT, and we hope to be very involved with you. Right? That's awesome. Thank you, Roy, and thank you. So you guys, let's go back to 645 with that message that it's not our duty to complete the work, but neither are we free to walk away, right? Page 645, right smack in the middle. Lo alecha halacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Lo alecha halacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Velo ata ben chorin lahibatel mimena. Velo ata ben chorin. Velo ata ben chorin lahibatel mimena. Velo ata ben chorin. Lo alecha halacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Lo alecha halacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. So I'm really, with all those who have contributed to our oneg, I can't wait for it. And so I just want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. I want to thank Rick Snyder for making our Zooming possible, and to our friends on Zoom. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We'll see you out there. Hello, ata ben chorin lahibatel mimena. Hello, ata ben chorin. Hello, ata ben chorin lahibatel mimena. Hello, ata ben chorin. Lo alecha halacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Lo alecha halacha ligmor. Lo alecha ligmor. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.